Welcome to Destination New South Wales Virtual Wine Appreciation. We are bringing you today into a fantastic New South Wales wine region and its cellar doors. Now, New South Wales has a huge diversity of wine regions. There are over 14 wine regions. So to the west, near Broken Hill, we have the Riverina, the Engine Room, makes a lot of wines, hot climate wines. And then towards the coast, we have the cooler climate areas. Now, today we are on a journey to the Southern Highlands, and the Southern Highlands is genuinely one of the most exciting wine regions in New South Wales. And the great thing about the Southern Highlands is it's the closest to Sydney. It's only a 90-minute drive, so it's a really short trip to get there. My name's Angus Hughson. Been writing about wine for the Australian newspaper, The Gourmet Traveller, for over a decade. Now, we are here at the beautiful private apartment in the Hotel Centennial in Willara, and we have Oxford Street streaming around us as well. Now, we are here because of the fantastic Melissa Moore. Melissa is one of Sydney's top sommeliers. She's head sommelier here. Melissa, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Angus. Thanks for having me. Melissa Moore is my name. I'm the head sommelier here at Hotel Centennial, and also for some other Merivale venues in the eastern suburbs, Fred's, the Paddington, Miss G's, and also Totty's at the Royal. I think I've been in the industry almost as long as you, Angus, but I have been in the past a DJ and also had my own radio show on Bondi FM.
Fantastic. So if you recall, so from Monday, June the 1st, it's time to reboot 2020. It's time for us all to absolutely get out there. So if you're interstate, now's the time to start planning that trip back to Sydney. If you're in the country, time to book that staycation in Sydney. If you're in city, time to get out back into the country, because all those small businesses, all those restaurants, all those bars, they are open and they're looking forward to seeing us. So now is really the time to love New South Wales again. So we're going to start with a little bit of housekeeping. So firstly, if you could just stay on mute, please. Type away your questions. We'll answer as many of those as we possibly can, and you can start typing questions right now if you want to. Also, please slide over to speaker view so you can see beautiful Centennial Park behind us, and Melissa as well, obviously. So, and please also use the hashtag #LoveNewSouthWales. We want to see your pics. We want to see your thoughts. We want to see what you have to say about New South Wales and the fantastic wines you're going to look at today. So what you need in front of you, important stuff. 2 bottles of wine you should have, 2 wine glasses as well, and don't forget your glass of water. Now, Melissa, with her musical prowess, she has put together some tunes for us today.
So in the chat box, you'll see a link to the Hotel Centennial playlist on Spotify. Loads of great music, exactly like the stuff I love. Some house, very chilled house, some Stevie Wonder, a little bit of kind of music to bop along to and taste your wines to today.
Brilliant. Now, we've been talking enough. I think now is absolutely time to get a drink. So, Mel, Southern Highlands, what are the 2 wines we're looking at today?
So today, Angus, we're going to see the 2018 Pinot Noir from St Maur, the Lot 41, and also a dessert wine today, the Tertini Noble 2017.
Okay, and what do you want to start with?
I think we'll start with the Pinot.
Absolutely. Let's start with the Pinot Noir. Now, you can all, and hopefully I can see what you're doing, it's time to open up your Pinot Noir. Beautiful wine. Bit of social distancing with pouring, you will notice. We're a long distance away. Hopefully you've got one of these really big glasses so you can really give it a swirl around and put your nose in. So, firstly, it's after 4 o'clock. It's Friday afternoon. It's time for a glass of wine. Cheers to you. Cheers.
Cheers.
To you, Melissa. Cheers to everyone for joining us. Thank you all for joining us. Hold up your glasses. Cheers. I can see some. Fantastic. And we're about to take a picture. So everyone hold up your glass. Show us how. Turn your camera on. Show us you with your wines. Brilliant. Thank you very much. Oh, we've got some people coming. They're coming. A couple of people in their pajamas. Excellent. Cheers. Thank you very much. So we are here to look at some Pinot Noir, and we want you to sit back and talk while we get stuck into and tell you all about the wines from the Southern Highlands. So for those of you who are in Zoom land, who has been to the Southern Highlands before? Hold up your hands. Have you been to the Southern Highlands? Okay, we've got some good waving from the Southern Highlands. Fantastic. Have we got any locals? Have we got any local Highlanders? I'm not sure. We might have some. Screen's looking a bit fuzzy. But, I mean, for that, I can see plenty of you have essentially, you've been to the Southern Highlands, you've seen how fantastic and how beautiful it is, and we hope I'm sure that Mel and I are going to be able to tell you a bit about the Southern Highlands. So, Mel, what makes the Southern Highlands special for you?
I think apart from its gorgeous beauty and the fact that it's so close to Sydney, as you said before, it's amazing and quite new viticultural area. So the vines were only planted there in the 1980s. They've only really been selling or producing wine properly since the 1990s. And it's so cool climate. It's vineyards roughly around 700 metres above sea level. So for me, living in Bondi where we're at 0, it's quite something, which is why it's cold, it's freezing at the moment, and it's really great for growing grapes like Pinot Noir and dessert wines like this one here.
And I think there's one real key to the area is actually the humidity. So I think when you're driving up in the Southern Highlands, you see everything looks green, and that humidity, that richness, I think you really see in the wines. I mean, there's 60 vineyards, there's 17 cellar doors, and it really is a region that, you know, it's taking off in many ways. And, you know, Pinot Noir's there, which is great, but it's a bit of a hothouse for emerging varietals as well, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. So, I mean, all the classics, so Pinot Noir, Cabernet, Chardonnay as well, but also smaller and very hard to find varieties, like Italian varieties like Lagrange and Refosco, and quite a lot of organic viticulture now. It's a bit of a buzzword, this natural wine thing, but there's quite a few producers there producing natural wine and organic and biodynamic.
Absolutely. And it's this cool climate thing, like it's really special. Like it's amazing that, you know, we are talking only 90 minutes from Sydney, and it's a completely different climate. You've got the vineyards, I think 700 to 900 metres, so that changes the climate, and also that humidity makes it really a very, very different place. So, you know, I should say Southern Highlands has really made a name for itself with Pinot Noir. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think mainly due to the fact that the wines are from cool climate and high viticulture. You mentioned the humidity before, but also they've got very complex viticultural soils, good volcanic soils, which is perfect for producing Pinot, which of course is a really tricky grape to grow. It's not a heavy producing high crop wine, which is why you don't find them in the bottle shop at $8 a bottle. I mean, they're really difficult to grow, and they've really managed to nail it in Southern
Absolutely, which is quite amazing. I mean, look at you out in Zoom land. Who likes Pinot? Who generally, have we got any Pinot fans? Okay, we've got some Pinot fans. Who's a Pinot hater? I know you're out there. Who loves Shiraz? Ah, there we go. Okay, excellent. We've got some Pinot haters. Brilliant. Well, you know, Mel and I, Pinot Noir is our favourite grape variety. We love the stuff, and we are absolutely hoping to get you onto the Pinot train. And please, tell me what you're smelling. Tell me what you're tasting. Tell us about, you know, send us any questions that you've got about this wine. What do you see in this wine, Mel?
Well, I think the first thing you have to notice is the colour, and it's not going to be a big, rich, purpley Shiraz. It's always going to be lighter. It's that beautiful red, slightly sort of terracotta tinges. When you put your nose in the glass, you can give it a good swirl around. Classic Pinot Noir red fruits, there's strawberries, red cherries. There's all that beautiful spice. There's like slight funkiness in a good way, that kind of mushroomy sous-bois, I think they call it. What's the other term? Sex on the forest floor,
yeah,
something like that?
There's a little bit of sex on the forest floor in this wine, absolutely. And I think that's the thing about Pinot is it's an aromatic red grape variety. And it's got these sour cherry kind of raspberry strawberry flavours. But for me, great Pinot, it's actually what else is there. It's actually that mushroom consommé. It's that Chinese five spice. It's that gaminess. It's that meatiness. And I think those savoury elements. And I see, you know, this particular wine actually has a hell of a lot of that savouriness, that earthiness. And also Pinot, it's all about the texture as well. You know, great Pinot should be essentially they're silky. They're got a velveteen texture, and a peacock's tail. So it's all velvety, but then right after you swallow it, suddenly there's this, you know, all these aromas come out, and I really see it in this particular wine.
And I think your comment about the savouriness is such an important thing, because I think Australian wine generally is away from the big fruit bombs, sweet, high alcohol. I mean, I think across the board. And this, for me, sums up everything that's really good. It's savoury, it's saline, there's that real kind of freshness, that crunchiness that winemakers like yourself talk about all the time in a wine, that crunchy Pinot Noir character that's so good for just drinking and sniffing as well.
And I think this wine, it's got some powerful fruit. It's got some acidity. I see this wine can go. I see this wine has, you know, some pretty decent aging potential.
I agree. I think this wine, I think, you know, 10 years, definitely. In 5 years, you start to see, at the moment, you can see Primary fruit characters, it's obvious, you know, the cherries, the raspberries that you're talking about, the sour cherries. Secondary is the oak, and I think I can really pick up that clove, that orange peel. That's really an oak character. And then in 5 years' time, you'll start to pick up those tertiary, those aging characters of, you know, more kind of mushroom, more funkiness, more complexity, more spiciness, but also probably the fresh fruit zinginess will kind of drop down and mellow out and become a bit more caramelly as well.
Absolutely. So Samantha, that's asking your question about essentially, you know, is this wine going to sell or drink well, both, you know, or drink well straight away or sell? It's really both. But I think, I tell you what, tonight, you've all got yourselves a bottle, chuck that in a decanter or any kind of flask kind of thing and let it breathe a bit, because I think this wine, it's feeling pretty tight to me. It's really feeling like it will build a lot, and it's got some generosity to give. So
can I just talk about that? Because quite often I know in the restaurant people ask me about decanting wine and saying, is it only for old bottles and why do you do it? And I think that definitely for older bottles, you can decant to get the wine from the sediment and the lees it's leaving behind. But for young, fresh wines, it's really good to be able to open it and aerate it, especially if you're in a larger group, you don't have the time to let it sit in the glass and kind of open up as well.
Absolutely. Now, I've got another question here asking about serving temperature. Pinot Noir, like, good to serve it when it's cool to begin with, like good to serve it at a cool temperature. If you serve it too hot, it gets overblown, the fruit all dies, it destroys. So really, you want to serve Pinot at English summer temperature probably.
That's right. Well, they talk about room temperature, but if you've got your heating on or you're in the middle of an Australian summer, it's going to be different. But I reckon 16 degrees, that means that if it is summer, pop it in the fridge for 10 minutes, especially Pinot. It really loves just a slight chill. Or we've even been known here when it's been a really busy, hot day at Totti's in the sunshine, we just put it into an ice bucket for like 3 minutes and absolutely delicious.
And I think from your, you know, Southern Highlands is making a name for itself with Pinot. Who else is making great Pinot, you think?
Oh, look, I think Cherry Tree Hill are doing some really great things. They actually have their house style and also their Hayden Reserve. We've also got, you know, Centennial Vineyards make 3 different cuvées, 3 different types of Pinot. Arts of the Southern Highlands, they've got their Old Brie Reserve and some more as well. I mean, I think these guys as well, they've got this lot 41, but they also have a reserve style as well.
And I think that the thing about Pinot too is, and we're not having a sparkling wine today, but Pinot Noir makes beautiful sparkling wines as well. So if you can grow Pinot Noir, if you can get it ripe, and in a cool climate, you can actually make some great sparkling wines. And we really do see that in the Southern Highlands. Now, we've got a bunch of comments coming through. Quentin has said, looks like Ribena. Look, it actually does. A really important thing about Pinot is don't worry so much about the colour. Like in Shiraz, I know people see big black wine, looks like sump oil, so it's going to be super tasty. With Pinot, some of the greatest Pinot Noirs in the world are the most delicately coloured. So don't ever essentially be fooled with Pinot. I've got a really good question from Amelia. Any tips? Oh, you're going to love this one. You're going to love it. Do you have any tips for picking good Pinot?
Oh, picking good Pinot. Well, I think it's all about where it comes from, because you look at this, we're talking about a cool climate and you can taste it, you can taste the elegance. Pinot really shows up. It's terroir. It's another kind of, it's a bit of a wine wanker word for where it grows, the weather, the soil it's grown in, what happens, the side of the hill that it's grown on, all these kind of things that you go, yawn, yawn, yawn. But it's so meaningful, especially with Pinot Noir. So the thing is the region. So you look at Southern Highlands because it's cool climate, and other cool climate regions around Australia, and obviously Burgundy, which is super cool.
Yeah, choose your place.
Choose your place.
Pinot Noir, choose your place. Literally, if you're buying Pinot from New South Wales.
That's right. The thing is that, I mean, you look at, you know, and unfortunately, it's also a price thing. So because I know, certainly having been in lockdown for the last couple of months, we've kind of relied quite heavily on our local bottle shop. And you can get bargains there, but unfortunately with Pinot Noir, it takes a lot to make it. So you really need to be spending a little bit more than you would with, say, a Shiraz or a Cabernet. Got
another good question from Amanda Woods asking about, says single vineyard on the bottle. What does that, how does that make that special? What do you have to say about that, Mel?
Well, I have to say, really going back to that whole thing about terroir and the land and the place and the romance of it actually coming out of this ground. You can go and stand there in the vineyard and look and see these are the plants that grew my wine. I mean, obviously Australia has a great history of blended wines. I can say Grange, for example, is the most famous blended wine of all. Yep. And don't let me take away from the quality, but however, there's something about an estate wine of a single vineyard that you just think, you know, that is the romance. That's surely why you get into it, you know.
And you can actually look at the place. You can literally walk through that
and
vineyard
feel the soil.
and
That's
feel
right.
the soil and go, actually, you know, this is what that kind of soil tastes like. We've also...
And also very importantly, because quite often if they're making different vineyards, it's because the wines could taste totally different. I mean, they'd have that Pinot Noirness to them, but you could have a single vineyard here, a single vineyard here that's literally a few steps away and have different flavours and characters in the wine. It's really fascinating.
It is. And from Rosemary, what kind of foods we get to Pinot? Rosemary, we're going to get there. Trust me, we're going to be going nuts about food in a moment. So give us a couple of minutes and we're certainly going to get there. Quentin also, Pinot's so hit and miss, can be too thin and weak. Look, absolutely. And like what Mel said, Pinot's just, it's fickle. You know, it's like that bad old...
You can also get a thin Shiraz though, to be fair.
Yeah, it's true. But it's like they are so fickle. It's like dating on Tinder. Like, you know, it is incredibly fickle. It's hard to find, it's very hard to find a good one. You normally have to go through a hell of a lot of wines before you really find something that's delicious. And Quentin's also said, how good was Sideways for Pinot? So Sideways, American film about Pinot Noir. Pinot Noir sales in America doubled because of a film.
But Merlot kind of didn't.
Not so good. So we've talked a little bit about Pinot. That's because Mel and I we love Pinot, let's be honest. But now I think it's time to go to the other one. Now I also have another question, which is from Sheridan, asking about what's the Southern Highlands known for with wines? Is it just these two, or is it just sweet wine? Is it just Pinot, or is there other stuff?
Look, I think initially it would have been with the classics, with Chardonnay, with Cabernet in particular. But I think like with every emerging wine region in Australia that started at one point, they grew a lot of different things and then saw which ones were best. I mean, I think there's a lot of money that goes into soil composition charts and what's going to grow best. And is my vineyard like the ones in Bordeaux? I think ultimately it can be a bit to see which ones are going to, and they might grow a few different things and say, we're going to stick with this and stick with this. Sometimes they make mistakes, like in Barossa, where they pulled all the Shiraz out, and now they're realizing that they should have kept a lot of it in. But I think with the Southern Highlands, they've been given such a great leg up because they've seen what's around, they've seen their viticulture, they've seen its cool climate. There's, you know, lots of different families that have grown up in the area as well. There's the Greek guys, there's the Italians. Hence, you know, grapes like Lagrange, Refosco, crazy things. And also some of the young guard, the new guys coming up and doing the organic and natural
It's
things.
also really early days. So, you know, if we're talking about the great vineyard regions of France, for example, they've been growing those grapes there for 2,000 years.
Sure.
I guarantee they tried a lot of grapes. You know, the Southern Highlands has been starting really in the 80s kind of thing. So we're at the early time. So I like the Sauvignon Blanc. Sparkling, I think, is exceptional. Pinot as well.
But also, you think about the wines that we were drinking in the 80s was Chardonnay and Cabernet. So that's probably what they planted straight away. Whereas now we're more intelligent. We know what we like. We like things. We like big oaky Chardonnay still, but we also like to try the Pinot Gris, the Pinot Noirs, all these kind of more elegant and food-friendly wines.
It's time to get desserty. It's time to get into one of the sweet wines. Melissa, please pour mine. Everyone, open your little sweet wine, have a pour. Now, normally, your sweet wine pours might be like 60 or 75 mils. So it's like half a wine glass is normally what you do. Have a look at the colour. As soon as you can you see it? Look at, for you, hold it up against the screen. Don't spill it on the screen, please. Hold it up against the screen. You'll see that deep golden colour, which is what you really want to see from a sweet wine. So please write down your notes, write down your questions about this wine. I think this is a fascinating wine. This one, Mel, how do you see this?
Well, I think the first thing, as you say, is the colour. You can tell this isn't a Riesling from the 2018 vintage. This is like a darker, deeper colour. When you swirl it in the glass, you can see the legs coming down. They're either alcohol or sugar. But the most important thing, when you smell, can you smell the marmalade? For me, it's all about that kind of bitter peel, but that sweet bitter peel, you know, as you spread it on your buttery toast.
Marmalade, creme brulee, a bit of oak in that, I reckon. There's a little bit of vanilla, there's a little bit of spice. But I think, talking about the quality of this wine, just feel that length, like you've swallowed it, probably, and you can just feel it. You can see it sing, and it's just sitting on that palate, and with it, it's got a lovely long finish. And I think you can see the quality of that wine, and there's people loving it. Unsurprisingly, Hansi is so delicious. Felix, yummo. Amanda, yum. I usually avoid dessert wines, but this is delicious. Look, really important thing about Amanda, there's old-fashioned dessert wines, there's new ones, but this is definitely a new one.
Oh, definitely. I mean, when you've actually tasted it, your comment about the length of the palate is, I mean, it's true. I can still taste it now. It's absolutely delicious. But the most amazing thing about it as well is that however rich and sweet and kind of full on it is that delicious acidity. Like, it's like that chalky acidity on your teeth. If you can taste it now, it's like, I want to have another sip. You know, it's making my palate kind of juicy.
Absolutely. And that's kind of the modern dessert. So there were the old-fashioned ones where they were these big, massive, luscious things that were all sweet. They tasted, you felt like you'd had like a tub of clotted cream. They were so sweet. But for these kind of the new modern ones, they're brighter, they're lighter, they're still sweet, but they got some lovely acid. Now, how's this wine been made?
So this is the Noble here, Noble 2017, refers to the noble rot, the botrytis that's affected the grapes in the vineyard. And it's like this crazy, ugly mold that makes little pinpricks in the grapes, sucks all the moisture out, and is left with this concentrated little berry that they squash and make into this great dessert wine.
It is so ugly. So if you love dessert wine, never look into it. Don't go in there. Don't go there on the interweb. Don't look at what the grapes look like. Because they look like just, you know, a peach that's been sitting at the bottom of your fridge for 6 months. That's what the grapes look like. They look like these little, wrinkly, covered in grey mold, horrible little things. But the juice that comes out of them is
produces some of the most expensive and amazing wines in the whole world.
In the world. And and what the mold does, it basically concentrates the flavour. So for some of those wines, you get half a glass of wine per vine.
Yeah.
Because that's how much concentrate goes into that. So, and they call it the noble mold because it doesn't happen everywhere. It only happens where you get kind of a warmish summer, you get some humidity, and also the fog, the nebbia in Italy, it hangs around during the day, and that's how you get it.
And then you need like a beautiful breeze to blow it all away in the afternoon. Otherwise, you just have like rotten grapes. It's really quite specific and doesn't always happen every year. You know, it's a miracle of nature.
It's lovely to see in Zoomland, and I'm completely unsurprised. This one is getting a lot of fans. Madeline, Andrea, Rebecca, Sheridan, Sammy, everyone's on this wine.
It's so good to see. Can I interrupt you? Sorry, Angus. It's so good to see everyone loving it because I think that dessert wine in restaurants, it takes a little bit of selling. You know, everyone's going straight for espresso martinis. You know, like, why are you drinking coffee at 10 o'clock at night? You should be drinking this because it's so delicious.
Now, Julia has talked, pity it's not appropriate to drink this as a table wine. It's delicious. Well, it is. And we're going to get to that in a minute. So, other people who do good sweet wines.
Yes, well, I think you've got Bendouli Estate who make a botrytis like this, such as Southern Forest as well, like a more intense and kind of marmalade-y. But also we've got Artemis who are making more of a German style where it doesn't have botrytis. Well, they kind of have a very fresh and lower alcohol sweet wine, which is basically where the fermentation stops because it's so cold and you're left with like a lovely, juicy and fruity wine, but there's with lower alcohol. I know in Australia we kind of tend to poo-poo the low alcohol wines. We're like, we want something, you know, 15%. However, it means that you can drink more of it, which is, you know,
good for driving.
Good for driving, good for long dinner parties.
Absolutely. Now, you know, obviously, both these wines, I think they're cracking little food wines. I think both these wines have some character that I think would go fantastic with food. We're at Hotel Centennial, we're at one of the Merivale venues in Sydney. Surely you have something on the menu that is going to be belting with these wines.
You know, as we spoke and I looked at this wine, the thing that I just immediately thought of, because I'm getting a bit hungry now, I don't think I had any lunch, is the veal cutlet that's on the menu at the moment with sauteed mushrooms, a little bit of polenta, burnt butter and crispy sage. And it's just amazing because not only has it got that lovely texture that you talk about, that silkiness that kind of matches with the texture of the veal, but also that slipperiness of the mushrooms, the herbal note from the sage. I think for me, I don't know which I would be trying to eat or drink more of. You know?
Absolutely, and I completely get that because Pinot Noir often has like a mushroomy, earthy kind of character. And so you're getting that in the wine and you're getting that in the food. And then veal, like veal's quite a meaty kind of meat, like it's quite flavoursome. Normally you go, oh, Pinot, I don't know about that, but this is actually quite a meaty kind of Pinot.
Oh, absolutely. And also,
dense kind of Pinot.
Quite often you think when you're matching wine about whether you would have, if you had a sauce with it, so if you had like a big veal stock reduction jus, then you might think about something else, but it's quite a light accompaniment. But those mushrooms for me just would be a bomb. And the fact that it's got that great acidity means that your palate is refreshed and you want to have another little bite of food, another sip of wine.
And great Pinot should always have that kind of bright acidity. And for me, you know, I'm thinking mushroom risotto kind of thing with a bit of
truffles on the top.
Yeah, with a little bit of shaved truffle on the spot, on the top. But I'm also thinking little birds, like any little bird, you know, something like a little quail, you know, you might rub it with some sage, you'll fry it in the fry pan, you'll chuck it in the oven for like 20 minutes and you'll just rip it apart, basically, with that peanut, essentially.
But also, with that acidity as well, you can match it equally with tomatoes, you know, because tomatoes are high acidity, so you could have almost like tomato-based pasta sauces, ragouts, even like an old homemade pizza oven on the thing on the side. I reckon this would go with so many different things.
And sweet wine, what would you go to sweet wine with?
Sweet wine, okay, I'm just going to say one thing, and it's roasted quince. That would be amazing. Roasted quince downstairs. I have to plug it because it's delicious, and that is the wine.
Are you delivering roasted quince at the moment?
Yeah, roasted quince with honey ice cream and hazelnut biscuit. I think just matches so many of the elements, and that's another important factor of food and wine matching. Is sometimes you're kind of going opposites, and sometimes you're going complementary, and that would be the most complementary thing because you have that honey, that caramelization, that kind of nuttiness. Yeah, I think it would just be dream.
I would go something different. I think one of the great food matches in the world is sweet wine and the stinkiest blue cheese you can find. I'm not talking about the kind of bit stinky. I'm talking about the stuff that smells like your dead socks that have been at the bottom of the cupboard for a couple of months. I'm talking seriously stinky. I think that will just go so brilliant. You got the saltiness, the sockiness, just goes so well with that sweetness and that acid. I think that all comes together. Traditional other kind of thing, and someone's already asked about, can you have this during the main meal? Well, you absolutely can, because with like pate, actually, like not a big glass, but a little glass of sweet wine, I think with pate is obviously great. We've got Quentin said aperitif with a block of ice. Would you put a block of ice in that?
Well, this is the thing. I mean, I like my wines as they are, as intense as they are. And we certainly get a lot of people putting ice in their wine at Centennial, let me tell you. Ultimately, it's whatever the customer would like. The guest is the boss here.
Absolutely.
And we totally bring ice for anybody. However, I do like it. I do find it dilutes a little bit. So I'd rather have it as the texture that it is. But look, I've also been known to throw a cube of ice in my Pinot if I'm in a warm
hot day. Yeah. I mean, if you want to bathe in it, do whatever you want. Like literally do whatever you want, as long as you enjoy the wine. Now, got some other nice questions here asking basically, how long will this one last once it's open? Good question.
Dessert wine. Well, the great thing is that they last quite a bit longer than a table wine because of the amount of sugar. So, for example, I know in a restaurant, it's really good to be able to serve this by the glass, even though they might not fly out the door as much as the espresso martinis, because they actually last a really long time. They're really great. And also, the interesting thing is because they're a half bottle, if you don't open it, it will actually age a bit quicker than if you had it at home and you wanted to keep it as a cellaring option.
Now, I've just been thinking about those little birds. I've been thinking about those veal cutlets. I'm thinking about food now. I'm absolutely on the food train, and I'm thinking about going to the Southern Highlands right now and smashing some food. But before we get there, before we're going to me, what about you now? Like, if you're going to the Southern Highlands, you're going for a couple of days, what's on the itinerary for you and your young-ish family?
Well, it's true. I've got two kids, 11 and 13. So however much I like to make it all about me and go and visit as many wineries as possible, I also have to consider them. So my ideal itinerary, you might want to get a pen. I've got a few options here.
I'm ready.
Well, the good thing is we wouldn't have to start too early on a Saturday because obviously we're just down the road. It's only an hour, 90 minutes away. So you wouldn't have to get up at the crack of dawn. You can get up at 9 o'clock, easy peasy. The first thing we do is stop in at the Boston in Mittagong, have a little coffee, get some snacks for the kids. It's like easy, it's on the way. Then I think just to give them a bit of a surprise is go to visit the alpacas at the Storybook Alpaca Place. Now you can feed the alpacas, you can cuddle them, you can take photos. I think that would just be brilliant because I think
my wife would like to do that.
I don't think my kids have had any alpaca time at all in their lives. Then if we planned our visit well, we could do some kind of market visits. So there's the Exeter Village Market. There's also the Bowral Public School Market. Now I know in Bondi, we've got very famous markets here. They have opened up already. Yep. So it'd be great to go there and check it out and look at the local produce because it's, bountiful, amazing. Then I think if I was planning my ideal weekend, I'd check into Bendooley Estate for the accommodation. And I know that there's also options where you can bring your kids and have like an apartment or a house, an individual house. And it's just amazing. So while we were there, of course, we would taste the wines and have some lunch. And the lunch looks amazing. I'm like, can't wait.
Epic.
But the thing is, they're also owned by the Berkelow family, so they've got a massive book barn. We could send the kids roaming and looking at while we enjoy the rest of our lunch.
Books,
like brilliant. Yeah, amazing. So that's what we do straight away. Then after lunch, I've got my husband and my son who are cricket tragics. So of course, where else to go than the Bradman Museum? I think we could probably use them there for like ages and ages. And then I'd probably go and do a bit of like proper work. and go and check out the guys at St Maur and Tertini and see any new releases that I haven't even looked to see.
Just a little bit of work.
Yeah, that's right. Just so I could kind of write it off, not.
Facts.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, but obviously always looking for new things for the wine lists at the venues. And then obviously wine tasting is quite boring for children. So I promised them afternoon tea at Dirty Jane's, which is also like a good thing for me because there's an antique market there and I can look for some nice blue and white crockery, which I love. Then I think we'd probably have a siesta and then get ready for a little gin and tonic at the Berrima Hotel, because I hear that they've got the most amazing Australian gin bar, like amazing array. And then they've also got dinner at Bistro Social, so you could have dinner afterwards after one or maybe two.
That's a long
Then the next day, I think, obviously a slow start. The Raw and Wild Cafe have got the most amazing pancakes, carrot and chickpea with labna. So I think, you know, it might soak up a bit of the night's successes. We'd go there first.
Some nice local produce, no doubt.
Exactly right. Then I'd probably go and see Tony at Ari's Natural Wine Co, because we do a lot with him at Totti's. We'd go to Barbara Storehouse because I'm always up to a bargain for the house. And then I'd have to promise the kids a little snack or something nice from the press shop, because they would probably need something by then. And then I think we'd probably take a little drive to the Burrowing Hotel, the village hotel. They've got a pub there, amazing views over the whole kind of vineyard area, but also an open fire. So if you're going on a day like today, or if it's snowing and it's exciting, you could actually have a nice little bit of sofa next to the fire, which would be great. And then I think Harper's Mansion is a place that I'm really keen to visit. It's an almost 200-year-old house that's owned by the National Trust and is updated. But the most important thing for my kids is that they have a big maze there. And apparently it's one of the largest hedge mazes in Australia. And I don't know if you've ever been to a maze with kids. It's hilarious because they could shout for you and they can't find you. It's really great.
Apparently there's also platypi in Berrima in the river.
Oh, no way.
For children.
Oh, there you go.
Write that down.
We'll try and catch them. Bring one home for the cat. And then, of course, I'd have to go back to have a proper wine focus at Centennial Vineyards. It's a beautiful area to taste wine in. But they also do a high tea. So the kids would be, I think, lured in by the little sandwiches and the beautiful scones and the rest of it. I could kind of bribe them to come with me. And then I think chill time back in the room. Onesta Cucina would be right up my alley at a wintry night with some beautiful Italian gnocchi. And then I think the only thing to think is the next day, after all of this, we pick up some pastries from Gumnut. I think you're a fan of the Gumnut Patisserie.
Gumnut Patisserie, pies, steak and kidney.
Yum. And then on the way home, do a little detour and go to the Illawarra fly, the treetops, and do some zip lining for the children. I think that way I could probably bribe them all the way through the weekend by promising the zip lining at the end.
I think Mel's obviously spent a lot of time there. I think
we're going tonight, actually.
We can be sure she spent a lot of time there. I mean, I've got simpler tastes, really, to be honest. Like,
what about you, Angus?
Well, I mean, the thing about the Southern Highlands is it's season. It changes with the seasons. It's actually a genuinely beautiful landscape. It's actually genuinely a place that changes between summer and spring. And I actually like just driving around a little bit and going to the towns, going to Berrima, going to Barrel. I just think it's a beautiful place. Robertson as well is another town. And the food, they just all around, like, obviously wine's important to me, but they just have such fantastic food. There's like there's the Pecora Dairy, and the Pecora Dairy, like, it's traditionally, it's done a lot of expensive cheese for kind of, for posh restaurants, essentially. So it's a really good place to drop in. There's Moonacres Kitchen. So Moonacres, they've got a local kind of organic farm so they farm everything locally, and then you can find it there. Major's Beef at Burrowing. So you can go to a beef place where they grow little cows, and you get to see the whole paddock to plate. And then at the end, you even get to go to the butchery to see, how the paddock actually really helps.
And truffles as well.
I mean, the interesting thing about truffles is there's not, again, like Pinot Noir. Truffles, they don't grow everywhere. The biggest truffle ever in the Southern Hemisphere was from Southern Highlands.
Amazing.
I mean, I reckon there may be a large truffle coming up there. The big truffle maybe coming anytime soon. I would go to the brewery. I think like the Eden Brewery. Some great stuff on the tap there. Then you've got the Barrel, Brasserie for dinner. And then Ealing Forest Winery too is a great place to stay. There's an Asian restaurant there, but it's a quite nice place to stay. Good place for kids to stay. As well. And I see Julie's talking about scenic drives from Marulian to Mossvale. Absolutely, they are definitely there. Someone's asked about the sparkling wine. I should say that the sweet wine I may go to. That sweet wine, was it $28? Was it the prices of these wines?
Exactly right. And I think it's obviously Noble 2017. A field blend is what they call it in the trade nowadays. So it's a blend of Semillon, Pinot Gris, perhaps a little bit of Sauvignon. I mean, you can smell all those different grape varieties in there. It's delicious.
Yeah,
isn't it?
absolutely.
I mean, Noble one obviously is classic New South Wales.
Semillon.
It's made of Semillon. But this one, I think, there's a lightness and a freshness.
So the price, what do we think? That's like 28, is it?
Yeah, 26.
Which is actually, to be honest, it's super cheap for sweet wine.
Perhaps a bit more in a restaurant.
Yes.
Because you get the service and the pouring and the glassware.
And the pleasure of the company.
And the pleasure of the company, that's exactly right.
And the Pinot?
Pinot is $38 again in, cellar door and retail.
And really in Pinot land, that's really not much. Like, I mean, it's a shame, but like Mel said, Pinot's really hard to grow.
You have to pay for the quality.
And it's the yield. The Pinot vine, if you make too much fruit from a Pinot vine, it gets unhappy and makes rubbish. So there's genuine actual physical reasons for why Pinot Noir needs to be essentially more expensive. So essentially, importantly, if you're thinking of going to Southern Highlands, I had a chat to Mark Bourne this week, and he's like the local wine guy, essentially runs the local organisation. And he said they had a pumping weekend basically last weekend. They're expecting it this weekend. So really, these places are getting full up. So it's really important for any trips you want to go, get in early. Absolutely, call people and call ahead and get to the regions and, find out where you can go, because accommodation, some places are already talking about being, months ahead essentially. And of course, before you go, just make sure you're well off as well. You're feeling good. I think all of us now, we need to kind of look after all of ourselves essentially and make sure that if we're traveling, if we're getting out, we're absolutely feeling great. So I just want to thank you all essentially for coming. We have Mel here. Mel, thank you so much. It's been so good to see you here. I think, and this beautiful apartment, everyone who's here wants to book it, but I know that's a bit hard. But anyway, thank you so much. Your comments have been fantastic.
Thanks, Angus.
But also thank you all for coming. Please also turn on your camera. We want to do the big camera cheers. We want to see you all. We want to see you all hopefully with empty glasses in front of you. I think that would be a key. Maybe hold up your favourite wine. Hold up your favourite glass. Show us which was your favourite wine. And let's say cheers. It's Friday afternoon. It's 4:41. That means the week's pretty much over. It's time to start the weekend. Cheers. Thank you for joining us. We hope to see you soon. Thank you. Cheers. Cheers.